What's going on, everybody? It's LtBuzzLitebeer back with another State of the Game recap, and there are a massive amount of upcoming changes planned for TU12, including a PTS in several phases, new exotics, new gear sets, new named items, and other items I wanted to recap for you today. But before we begin, in case you are not yet a sub to my channel, please take just a moment to smash that sub button and ring the bell to receive all future notifications from my YouTube channel. FYI, I have recently started reviewing early review copies of current releases, and my first two titles included full reviews of Watch Dogs Legion and Assassin's Creed Valhalla, both up on my channel right now, and I would appreciate a view on both of those. So without further delay, let's get started. So today's State of the Game stream was conducted by Hamish, Johan, and Trick, and they did start off with priority alerts, but the only item they announced is that there was a server maintenance yesterday, but no bug fixes were deployed. Getting into the mainstream highlights, and the first order of business was that the Title Update 12 PTS will start this Friday, November 13th on PC only. Sorry once again, console owners, and it's going to run through Wednesday, November 18th, and this is going to work differently than past PTS sessions, and that Phase 1 and Phase 2 will have a break between them. Now, Phase 2 will go live November 27th and run through December 2nd. Now, they also mentioned that the patch notes will go live on this Friday, I guess, for Phase 1, and I'm going to do my best to give you a full breakdown of those once I can get a good look at them. Next up, Trick kind of took control of the stream and started discussing the focuses of TU12, and it turns out it's going to focus heavily on skills. Now, in particular, they wanted to focus on the player's interaction with their skills and weaponry during combat, and have therefore created perfect versions of certain weapon talents. They also unveiled the new weaponry and gear sets coming in TU12, and all of these are seemingly skill build centric. So first up is the new exotic AR that we heard about as a reward for completing 5 summit challenges, and it is the Capacitor, modeled on the PDWR platform. Now, why a PDWR is being modeled and characterized in the assault rifle category, hell if I know, but there you go. So the Capacitor features the Capacitance weapon talent that for shooting enemies builds stacks to a cap of 50. Now, each stack grants plus 1% skill damage. After 5 seconds, stacks decay 1 per second. For each skill tier, gain 5% weapon damage. So what you've got here is a really fast-firing AR that works kind of like Striker's battle gear, but for skill damage. Now, it also stacks weapon damage per skill tier. So at skill tier 6, you will have a static plus 30% weapon damage at all times. On the flip side, 50% skill damage is pretty insane, and it works kind of like combined arms, but with far more output, and the stacks decay at a much slower rate. The next featured weapon is an exotic shotgun named the Scorpio, which is modeled on the 612 shotgun platform. Now, the Scorpio features the Septic Shock weapon talent, and this is absolutely effing mental. So for shooting a target, it applies a stacks of Venom, which lasts for 10 seconds. Increasing stacks add more severe debuffs to the target. 1 stack adds Poison, 3 stacks disorient, 6 stacks add shock, and 7 stacks target takes additional 20% damage from all sources. All those stacks no longer increase. Now, they also disclose that the stacks can be applied by multiple players. So if you have a couple people in your squad hitting targets, they will be able to apply the max of 7 stacks pretty quickly to a wide range of targets. It was also mentioned that this is a 1 stack per shot connected, not for every 1 pellet. There is also a new exotic holster modeled after BTSU tech named the Waveform. The talent for this holster is called Alternating Current that generates a stack of plus 3% skill damage on one of your skills every second, capping at 10 stacks. Now, after 10 seconds at the cap, the stacks transfer to your other skill. So this process then repeats ad infinitum. So this holster is always building stacks up to a max of plus 30% skill damage that you can use either on your primary skill or wait for 10 seconds and then deploy your secondary skill. Once again, like everything else that I've been discussing, this is really crazy in terms of skill damage. They also showed off a new named marksman rifle called the Scalpel, and this looks to be based on the Carbon 700 marksman rifle chassis. It will feature the Future Perfection weapon talent that will grant +1 skill tier for 19 seconds and can stack up to 3 times. Weapon kills at skill tier 6 still grant overcharge for 15 seconds. Now, you've all seen Future Perfect on the mechanical animal, so here is the sniper rifle version of that, which will go live in TU12. There's also a named version of the PDWR called Test Subject that will feature perfectly in sync that will function exactly the same as the named Harmony rifle. The 20% skill damage and 20% weapon damage will still be there, and damage increases are doubled when both buffs are active at the same time. So if you were getting a bit tired of spamming the trigger with the Harmony, you will now have a full auto version of that weapon that will obviously not hit as hard, but the weapon talent will still function the same. New gear will also appear in Title Update 12, and this new brand set is called Empress International that completely focuses on skills, seeing a theme here for TU12, and the named Empress backpack is called the Battery Pack and will feature perfectly calculated as the talent. Essentially, kills from cover will now reduce skill cooldowns by 15%. The named Empress International body armor is called Caesar's Guard and will feature the perfectly skilled talent so that skill kills will now have a 30% chance to reset skill cooldowns. Now, I also wanted to touch on the brand set bonuses of 10% skill health, 10% skill damage, and 10% skill efficiency on the 3-piece Empress International bonus. Skill efficiency is really strong, and I have discussed this in the past as it will give everything related to skills, damage and health and haste, duration, etc., that 10% bonus. Skill efficiency was previously only available on the exotic Memento backpack, so here is a normal brand set version now being introduced into the live game. The new gear set coming in Title Update 12 is also skill build based, and it is called Rigor. So the 2-piece bonus is 15% skill haste, the 3-piece is 15% skill duration, and the 4-piece will activate Tend and Befriend. Remember how I mentioned earlier on how they are trying to get us to interact more with our skills during combat? Well, this gear set talent rewards you for doing just that. Interacting with your deployed skill grants the skill 25% skill damage for 10 seconds. The buff cannot be refreshed. Interactions include deploying the skill, changing the skill's target, focus on that one, and healing the skill. The added bonuses for the gear set are on the backpack, called Complete Uptime, that resets your cooldowns for canceling your skills, and on the body armor, Best Buds, will increase the damage buff from 25% to 50%. Now, I'm going to speak a bit freeform on this and the new gear sets and the rest of the new skill-centric items coming in TU12 in just a moment, but on paper, this new gear set looks like it will be able to propel skill builds to even greater output levels. Not actually shown on stream is a new upcoming skill variant called Achilles Pulse that will work as a single point pulse and will identify weak points on that specific target that you pulse. Now, based on your skill tier, it will show more of these points, and shooting those areas will apply your character's headshot damage to those points, and somebody else on your squad who has a lot of headshot damage can also benefit from this because it's not character specific for the pulse. And yeah, you're going to be able to pulse targets and apply headshot damage to these weak points, even if it's not the target's head. All right, that is the end of the scripted portion of today's recap, so let me just give you some of my thoughts on TU12 in general off the top of my head. So first off, you have seen all of this, all of these skill build buffs and bonuses coming, and as I listen to it, first off, as a skill build user, I have several different variants. I have one that kind of uses a drone turret combo. I have another one's an artillery turret. I enjoy using skills. This seems to be taking something that I don't think was a weak point in the game. I think skill builds were really in a good place for this game, and it's taking them, it's like, it looks like, at least on paper, that it's like doubling. I'm not saying it's doubling the damage output, but it's certainly doubling all the available items we're going to be able to spec into for skill damage and skill builds. And I really didn't think this was an issue with the live game at this point. Really, the only issue that I have, even on the hardest content, let's say legendary on the summit, is when you run into, if you're running a skill build, is when you run into those EMP, whatever objectives that just seem to just knock your your skills out so you can't use them. I also have an issue with, getting shot with shock rounds or EMP pulses where you're using a ballistic shield that actually causes it to undeploy, if that's a word. I don't see how a ballistic shield that's designed to block bullets should be affected by EMPs, but that's another story. So anyway, I'm looking at this. I mean, we've got sniper rifles, we've got PDWRs, which are being called ARs. Ouch. We've got all sorts of skill build weapon talents. We've got all sorts of skill build gear talents. We've got a new gear set that actually uses skill efficiency, which is a huge bonus. I mean, that gives you 10% for everything skill related, like damage, haste, you name it, duration, health. It's all in there. That's coming. And then we've got a skill-centric gear set, another one. We had, what do we have? We had, you could use Eclipse Protocol if you wanted to. You could also use Hardwired. I've kind of, steered away from that, but you look at Rigor and the fact that just interacting with your skills, which we have to manually target pretty much everything right now. I have to manually target my turret, just my normal, assault turret. I have to target my drone right now, or else it'll just sit over my shoulder and makes a bunch of chirping noises, but it doesn't really attack anything. So I have to manually target quite a bit now. And the fact that now when I do it, I'm going to pick up, 25% skill damage. And if I'm wearing best buds on the body armor, it's going to go to 50% skill damage. I mean, has anyone really tested this out at Massive? That is crazy. 50% skill damage. Wow. So, I mean, I can't imagine what my skill build is going to push out once I have that up and running. And the backpack looks like, or maybe maybe you're using the capacitor. Maybe you actually get that and, you start picking up those huge skill damage stacks with that weapon, which it doesn't hurt you for missing a target. It just rewards you for stacks for hitting targets. So you can basically just blind fire right over cover, stack that thing up. That'll go up to 50 stacks. You can pick up to 50% on the body armor, and wow. And within this gear set, I think with Rigor, it gives you the ability to, if you pull down your skills, they have like an instantaneous cooldown. I mean, once again, I'm taking a look at it. I appreciate, skill build type items. They did mention that many of these things, like for instance, the Scorpio shotgun is going to have different sets of stacks for PvP. But some of this stuff, like if you take this in and you start hitting stacks with the Rigor gear set in PvP, that's going to be kind of mental. I don't know exactly. I mean, maybe they'll have more of it in the patch notes coming out this Friday, and we can start to take a look at it. But 30,000 foot view looking at the game, I don't think the issue was with power levels or the abilities or just the variance available to skill build users for this game. Once again, for PvE, it looks sick. So if this was just a PvE game, which basically for me, this is just a PvE game. I don't participate in PvP for obvious reasons, like many of you. But for PvE, this looks like it's going to just absolutely just blow the ceiling off of the damage output for skill builds. Once again, I'm for more power level versus NPCs, especially on legendary difficulty. I think they have way more advantages than we do. All of those, the special ammo and things like that, and especially when you're taking on, legendary black or white, I call them white tusk. When you're taking them on and, they have EMPs blasting off everywhere that don't affect them, they just affect us. Any little advantage we can get, but these look like huge advantages in the skill builds. Once again, I guess we're going to get to test this out. Unfortunately, like I said, I feel really bad for anyone on console. You're not going to get to play the PTS. The PTS will go live this Friday. Like I said, the patch notes are supposed to come out on Friday. I'll, of course, do one of those normal reviews where I just read through them. I give you my basic thoughts on this, but from what I'm seeing here on paper for Title Update 12, this is everything to do with skill builds. Like if you don't have a skill build right now, if you've just been, tearing through everything with your shield and your whatever, your Lady Death or, you know, whatever, and you've got your Hunter's Fury gear set, you need to be looking into assembling a skill build when TU12 comes out, because this looks absolutely crazy. 50% skill damage on rigor, plus you get skill haste, you get skill duration, or even if you wanted to go up into Empress International, you know, and you get 10% skill health, 10% skill damage, 10% skill efficiency, which is essentially, it's got skill damage in there, so you're picking up 20% skill health, 20% skill damage, and then 10% on everything else. That's really the way you need to read it. That's pretty sick. And then, you know, you're not tied into using the memento. You could run around with something else. I mean, you could run around with the new waveform, you know, exotic holster, you know, or whatever you want. That looks like it may be, you know, just as strong, and give you a little more flexibility. I mean, so there's a lot going on in here, but it's all skill build centric. So like I said, if you have just been relying on an all red build, or maybe you got just a tank build and you've been, you know, scoffing and laughing at, oh, these dummies using a skill tier 6 and all they do is hide behind cover, and, you know, and that damn, you know, artillery turret just shakes my screen everywhere. Well, maybe you want to jump on the bandwagon with this, because just looking at this, TU12 is all about the skill builds. Right, probably a good place to go ahead and end today's State of the Game recap. As always, I look forward to reading your feedback in the comment section below, especially with the way things are going on these days with COVID and everything. This kind of gives me a little connection to the outside world, because we're all kind of quarantined. So please leave a comment. What are your feelings about TU12? I'll do my best to respond back to them. Like I mentioned in the intro, I've now started to get into pre-review reviews. So my first 2 are up on the channel. I was able to get about 25 hours in with Watchdog Legion before it launched. So if you want some general ideas on that, maybe you haven't purchased that, links to that video, just check out my channel. And I also got in about 42 hours with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is kind of all the craze right now. I put a review for that up on my channel. No spoilers in both of those. I try and keep it, you know, keep things out of the mainstream, but definitely take a look at those. I appreciate any feedback on those. Also just posted a video where I grabbed all of the opening scenes from every Assassin's Creed title pretty much ever made, excluding Chronicles and any of the iOS games or anything like that. Yeah, you can take a look at there, and they've also even got the Valhalla intro, which I was able to get and record, so it's on there. If you haven't yet smashed that sub button, I greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to ring the notifications bell. The way the algorithms work now on YouTube, you may not get an alert even if you're subbed to my channel unless you have that bell activated, and you got to set it to receive all notifications. If you like the video, rate it with a thumbs up, if not with a thumbs down. Links to support me and my content creation outside of YouTube include Patreon and Teespring. Both of those links are in the video description. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter for all my latest thoughts concerning most things gaming related. And until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer signing off.